The most important Harley-Davidson in the last 50 years, this bike. Well, not this bike, but the bike that inspired it, the 1971 FX Superglide. We owe the existence of the Superglide and the factory custom to a young designer not long out of art school. And that young designer was Willie G. Davidson, heir to the Harley-Davidson throne. Willie and the team knew they needed something new. They needed something that wasn't a touring bike and wasn't a Sportster. They put those two together and gave birth to the FX Superglide. Cruisers as we know it really didn't exist before that moment, and it changed the direction of the American V-twin. Harley-Davidson owned heavyweight touring in the late 60s, but the bikes were considered not so much nostalgic as dated. The Sportster, meanwhile, was the sporty bike that had been taking on the British since 1957, but the British were no longer the problem. Honda had released the inline-four CB750 in 1969, and Kawasaki was right behind with the Z1. The relevance of the Sportster as an American superbike was ending. Willie G had seen what owners and custom builders had been doing to the motor company's bikes as the custom scene exploded in the 1960s, and he made the leap with the FX. The FX combined the FL touring chassis with the light and lithe Sportster front end all the way down to the headlight eyebrow. The bike was powered by the 74 cubic inch shovel head, and the touring chassis was stripped down as much as possible, even removing the electric starter, making the new bike kick only. And so an Electroglide became the Superglide. It was Willie G. Davidson's first whole bike design for Harley-Davidson.
The thing that is, incredibly special about Willie is his ability to recognize culture and weave that into the product. So, you think about choppers and how these guys were swapping bits and pieces to change the attitude of the motorcycle. And I think that just taps into Willie's ability to notice that and pick up on it and really leverage it and kind of take this FL and be like, man, this would look really cool if I put a slim down Sportster front end on it, and I took all of this extra touring accessory off of it and just made it a more slim down pure motorcycle. And the process of doing that just drastically changed its appearance and its proportion and its attitude. That's a really unique moment because it is kind of the birth of this entire segment that is kind of more or less shaped American motorcycling for the last 55 years in terms of what a cruiser is.
Which is why 55 years later, Harley has brought back the Superglide, and for the first time on the Softail platform. The special edition FXD is limited to 2,500 numbered units for the US and Canadian markets only, and retails for $15,999.
There's no surprise the Superglide rides exactly how you expect a Softail to ride. And they unified the chassis between the Dyna and the Softail and updated it for better performance and stiffer frame and monoshock for everything. It really did technically elevate the motorcycle. Steering is light and precise, particularly with these wheel sizes. These are much narrower wheels than, say, you did on a Fat Boy, and the Fat Boy has a very distinct riding feeling.
When we finally saw the new Superglide, we had to ask, why no boat tail? It was such an iconic image of the time.
As a designer, I really appreciate it. I think to me, it even some of the surface on the original seating, it kind of had these chamfered, and it sort of reminds me of, some of the automotive trends that you would see at the time. Think about like interiors in like a Bertoni car or something like that. And then the kind of the overt proportion of the boat tail, Willie was clued in. And if you think about like Tracy body kits and just crazy things were being done with people just using Bondo in garages, right, to form choppers and king and queen seats with all this form. And I think he was tapping into that in that production sense with the boat tail, and certainly looking for a way to visually kind of put an exclamation point on, like, this is not an FL, but the sales did not lie that year.
Yeah,
it did so poorly that they quickly were like, whoops. And unfortunately, many of that fiberglass made its way into dustbins, which makes people cringe today.
If no boat tail, what makes this 2026.5 Harley a Superglide?
First and foremost, it was like, okay, I'm gonna go with the larger fuel tank, right? Because it gives me that iconic teardrop shape. I'm gonna go with the center console with the gauge mounted up there to get that profile and that silhouette. We're gonna change some of the finishes around. It's gotta have laced wheels. You know, clearly the homage to the kind of sparkle white paint. You know, we've got our white onyx pearl. It's got a lot of flake in it.
And of course, the red and blue graphics on that 5-gallon tank and the fenders, all inspired by the original Superglide. And of course, there is the return of chrome, and lots of it. We called this video the return of the Superglide, but maybe it should have been the re-return of the Superglide because Harley-Davidson brought this bike back in 2006 for the 35th anniversary. We marked this in the pages of Cycle World by having Cook Nelson ride it from his New England home to Milwaukee to meet with Willie G and give us a proper American road trip on one of the most American motorcycles ever conceived. Nielsen wrote the first road test of the Superglide for Cycle magazine in 1970, the cover for which read, Harley-Davidson's outrageous Superglide. Nielsen said of the Superglide in 1970, accelerate it does, corner it does, stop it does not, adding that the single leading shoe front brake from the much lighter Sportster faded like an echo. The 2026.5 version has the essential softtail underpinning, so its counterbalanced 117-inch Milwaukee 8 and 6-speed transmission make it fly. The stiff chassis and taut damping make it handle, and the dual disc brakes haul it down from high speed without even an echo of fade.
At 60 miles an hour, you're doing about 2,350 RPM. It's very chill, but it's also fast. Like if you really rev this thing up, it pulls hard. Chassis is really taut. The fork tubes are huge. It is a laid-back cruiser motorcycle, but the cornering clearance is decent, especially with the mid controls, and it's really fun on a back road.
As I parked the Superglide in the late afternoon light to absorb the stance, color, and finishes, the bobbed fender struck me as more street bob than the original Superglide, as are the Mini Apes. But I concede for the current customer and trends, the Superglide does a great job of bringing the feelings. Still, I'm personally shopping for a different handlebar, and I'd do my damnedest to get a Sportster eyebrow mounted on that small, chromed headlight. Harley has leaned into the 2-in-1 exhaust on current Softails because the combined bigger muffler volume gets the bike through noise and tailpipe emissions testing easier while making more power. It's not a dead ringer for the 2-in-1 of the original FX, but the new Superglide system does a very good job of recalling the exhaust used on the 1977 FXS Lowrider, one of the Superglide's offspring and a huge seller on its debut. The 117 Milwaukee 8 is a great running engine with loads of torque. Recent dyno runs on similar engines have shown that we get 94 horsepower and 118 foot-pounds, refreshingly not far off the 98 horsepower and 120 foot-pounds claimed by Harley-Davidson for the Superglide. The 1971 Superglide represented a huge, audacious change in the very spiritual position of Harley-Davidson, and in fact it tracked with the spiritual position of its designer Willie G, who you can't deny is genetically Harley-Davidson, and who very much evolved with the company, leading it in this important way during a critical time.
One of the things that I love right now at the Harley-Davidson Museum, there's an exhibit that kind of talks about the history of design a little bit, and they show these photos of Willie where, you know, he's a young, you know, must have been right out of school at Art Center. He cut his teeth interning as an ID guy at Brooks Stevens, but he just looks like he's got the typical 50s Sergeant Slaughter flat top haircut and these big thick rimmed black glasses, and you know, he's wearing a suit. It's very much like how the design staff would have looked at, you know, GM in 1962. And then, you know, just a few short years later, when he comes into Harley and really takes on the role of you know, head of design and forming our first styling and design department, you see how quickly his appearance starts to change. And I think it's the effect of absorbing that cultural moment that was motorcycling in the late 60s. And Superglide is kind of, you know, for me and for us as a company, it's that birth of recognizing that, like, oh, Harleys really are more than machines. There's a uniqueness to this riding experience, and when you tap into that, you know, you're starting to go beyond the specification, and you're talking about intangible value
Perhaps the Superglide was that moment where the intangible value started to come into focus. The cultural weight of the 45-degree big twin, its sound and feel, it seemed to feed the generational loyalty and history of Harley's customers in a new way. The Superglide certainly helped bridge the gap to the desperately needed Evolution Big Twin of 1984. That new engine launched an era of measured technical progress that backed up a spiritual, intangible experience with a very real, tangible value. These tangibles and intangibles are embodied in the 2026.5 Superglide. In some ways, its existence begs the question, what's the next FX?